Don't hear a lot these days about Venezuela. You know, it is one of the characteristics of a sociopath or a psychopath that they do not seem to experience any moral guilt or doubt based upon the evils or the evil results of their actions. And all of the people who were very keen in 98 and afterwards about Hugo Chavez and what a wonderful spirit and freedom and revolutionary fervor he was going to bring to Venezuela, they have all gone silent as the inevitable results of socialism, of distortion of the market, of the destruction of price signals, which are the only way to efficiently allocate resources. All of this has come to pass. It's been a long time coming in Venezuela. Venezuela began to really experiment with nationalization in the 50s, nationalized the telephone company and other things, but it remained relatively free. Until 1980s or so, they really began to extend and expand things. As, of course, oil prices went up, they got more and more, quote, free money, and then expanded the government even more. And then after Chavez and now his successor have come in, there has just been massive expansions in state power. I mean, in the 1950s, government only ate up 20% of the GDP. Now, of course, it's far higher. And what has been the highly predictable and inevitable results of this expanded socialism in Venezuela? Well, hyperinflation. There are people rooting through garbage cans looking for things to eat. There are schools that barely have any supplies. There are hospitals with very few, if any, medicines and filth and disease. There are immense Soviet-style lines to buy basics, medicines, bread, flour, and so on. And there, of course, has been expanded state control over complaints, freedom of expression, all the usual hysterical tamping down on the geyser of indignation that arises when the inevitable economic consequences of the desire for the unearned manifest themselves. The cost of living has gone through the roof in recent years, and let's have a look at some numbers. So look at the salary earned by a full-time college professor. We'll call him Professor X, right? So in the 1980s, Professor X could buy 1 kilogram of beef with 15 minutes worth of his salary, right? Professor X buys a kilogram of beef, 15 minutes of his salary. Now, in July 2017, now, to buy 1 kilogram of beef, Professor X needs to work not just 15 minutes, but 18 hours. Hours. And I would assume, of course, 18 hours of work consumes more calories than you can obtain from a mere kilogram of beef. So it is a starvation spiral that is occurring here. Now, if you look at the 1980s, Professor X, to buy a new sedan, like a new car, he had to pay almost a year's salary. But now, if Professor X wants a new car, he has to pay 25 years worth of his salary. And it's even worse since then. In the 1980s, his monthly salary, he could buy 17 basic baskets of essential goods. Now he can only buy 1/4 of one basic basket of goods. The currency, the lifeblood, the survivability of an urban environment, right? I mean, if people are living on the farm, they can consume a lot of what they produce themselves. But the moment you get excess food production, which requires a free market to create, to distribute, and to end up being in stores, you require price signals and free markets. In order to have cities, you need a free market. And what's happened, of course, is the excess food production that occurred as a result of the free market that allowed for the growth of the cities is being choked off, because the government is increasingly destroying market incentives, even market possibilities to get food to people in cities who can't possibly sustain themselves. What you can buy, you get 3 pots of oregano on the windowsill. That's really not enough to live on. And so the cities, as they always do in these kinds of situations, are the first to die. So in March 2007, the biggest bill in Venezuela was the 100 Bolivar bill. Now, in 2007, with the 100 Bolivar bill, you could buy $28. You could buy 56 kilograms of rice or 288 eggs with your 100 Bolivar bill. Now, it's $0.01, 0.2 eggs, 0.08 kilograms of rice, And so in July 2017, and it's even worse now, I assume, instead of being able to buy 288 eggs with your 100 Bolivar bill, you needed 5 100 Bolivar bills to buy just one egg. To buy just one egg. People are suffering in ways that can scarcely be imagined in the more prosperous West. People are dying. People are starving. You have floods of middle-class women going over to Colombia to sell their bodies in prostitution just to get enough food for their families. You have people selling off their children. You have an absolutely staggering amount of suffering going on in Venezuela at the moment. It is a future and a presage of what happens when government continues to control the market, when the cities die, when the women turn from housewives to whores, when the children turn from joyful additions to your family to sell by the pound commodities on a very black market. This is the future that awaits us. And my question is, if sociopathy is associated with having no guilt, shame, or remorse over the evil results of your evil actions, what do we call the people who ignore the suffering in Venezuela today? I know what I would call them. So let's stop taking advice from them, okay?